We've entered a world that we call the world of big data. Everything, every single action, every sales moment, all the stats associated with the game. The box score, the line score, the play-by-play. If it's in news, if it's in sports or finance or real estate, to be able to take masses of data and bring it down to the point where we can give you exactly the story that you want, and often the story you need. And so you don't have to know the numbers. In fact, you don't have to know the numbers at all. You don't have to see the numbers at all. All you have to do is listen to the story. That's what narrative science does. I'm Kris Hammond. I'm one of the co-founders and CTO of Narrative Science. Narrative Science is a technology company, and our technology transforms data into stories and insight. We take a language that people are not used to. That is the language of highly structured data, spreadsheets and numbers, and we turn it into narratives, into stories that are really the natural way in which people communicate with each other. There's a really sweet episode of the sitcom The Office where Steve Carell's character, Michael, is given a spreadsheet. And it's not just a single sheet, it's a pile of sheets. And he's sitting there looking at that and has absolutely no idea what those numbers mean.
Why don't you explain this to me like I am an 8-year-old?
All right, well, this is the overall budget for this fiscal year along the x-axis.
Yes.
Right there.
There's the x-axis.
You can see clearly on this page that we have a surplus of $4,300.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
We have to spend that by the end of the day or it will be deducted from next year's budget.
Why don't you explain this to me like I'm 5?
And this is actually something that most people in decision-making in the world are confronted with. To take that story, to take that little piece of narrative, that little snippet, and instead of having a person do it, have us do it. And when I say us, I mean have our system, Quill, actually do it. To take a look at that data, figure out what the information is, and present it to you. Its entire job is to humanize data, to be a communication bridge between the numbers and the knowing. With numbers, you have to calculate. With visualizations, you have to interpret. With a narrative, you just have to read. So one of our clients is a large fast food organization. They meter and monitor all the point of sale information for their franchisees. And that includes things like every single item that's been sold, when it was sold, how much it cost, how much it was sold for, what the weather was like, what other stores are in the region, what promotions are going on. All of this information is handed to us. And what Quill does is figure out what the facts are, what's true in this data, fit it into a story structure, and then once all that's done, apply language to it, to figure out how to say it. And at the end of that, we end up with a narrative. How the store is done in the past, how it compares to other stores, and most important, a piece of advice. And on a weekly basis, for every one of these stores, and there are about 14,000 of them, that one piece of advice that says, today, you should focus on this item. Today, if you sell 5 more of these, you'll make another $2,000 this month. You'll make another $24,000 this year. And it gets it down to a very specific, very concrete piece of advice. Where we're not telling them what to do. We're just saying, here's an opportunity. If they had to go and look at the data directly, they would literally have to look at 5, 6, 7 different spreadsheets to figure everything out. Other stores would read the stories for your store and think, I'm not interested in that. But for that store owner, it is the most important story of the day. A lot of the power of this technology is this notion of an audience of one. And so the starting point for us as a company was we actually wrote college baseball stories for the Big Ten Network. There's a company called Game Changer, and they have an iPhone app that allows parents and coaches to score Little League games. And so what they did is they started handing us the data. And the computer would write game stories. Last year we wrote about 370,000 of them. This year we're going to write probably around 2 million of them. Now here again, the game story for a single Little League game is really interesting only to a very small group of people. The kids on the team, the parents, maybe the kids' friends. But for those people, they're tremendously important because these kids get to see the story of their efforts, of their lives, of what they've done, written up in a way that looks absolutely like a human being wrote it.
The Red Sox beat the Rays 5-1 Wednesday behind both the bat and the arm of Zach Smith. Smith racked up 4 RBIs on 2 hits for the Red Sox. He singled in the first inning and doubled in the 7th. Smith got the win.
The win for the Red Sox. Thanks to 8 strikeouts, Smith allowed no earned runs on 5 hits and 1 walk.
People wonder about whether or not we're going to be automating journalists out of a job. And the reality is that we're not. We're generating stories where no one was generating them before. We wrote 370,000 Little League stories last year. It's not as though we put 375,000 writers out of work writing those stories, because no one was writing those stories. And they're not writing them for the simple reason that there are so few people reading those stories, any given story, that it's not worth the time, the effort, the resources to do so. One of the areas that we're super excited about is personalized feedback, audience of one feedback to students who are taking online courses, online practice tests. And instead of giving them feedback that's just the numbers, the computer, and Quill in particular, can actually tell them the same sort of stories in terms of reviewing their performance and giving them advice that we were doing in business. And to be able to say, look, in physics, you need to know more about magnetics and electrostatics. And so here's the chapter you should look at, here's the section you should look at, here's the exercise you should try before the next time you take this test. Study this, for the love of God, study this. This is, this one chapter is the difference between a B and an A for you. Look at this and you'll do better. Taking that world of big data and turning it into real evidence to actually provide advice that can help you make decisions. It's not general, it's not abstract, it's specific, grounded, and relevant. That's for you, and that's a good story.